She doesn't remember the words. She might not even remember where they were. But her body remembers the exact way you touched her wrist 3 years ago. That particular pressure, that specific warmth, the pause. Her skin has a filing system for these moments, and it never forgets a single entry. You might think touch is just touch, a gesture, a reflex, a simple expression of affection. But to her, it is a language spoken beneath the level of conscious thought. And here's the first thing they never tell you. A woman's reaction to your touch has almost nothing to do with the touch itself. It has everything to do with what the touch means in that fraction of a second before her mind can catch up and edit the response. Let's slow that down. When your hand makes contact with her skin, her brain doesn't ask, "Is this nice?" That question comes later. The very first question her nervous system asks is this safe? Safety is not a feeling. It is a physiological state. It is the absence of threat. And for most women, moving through the world involves a constant, low-level background calculation of risk. It is not paranoia. It is data. It's the awareness of the car that slows down too slowly behind her on an empty street. It's the subtle shift in grip when a stranger stands too close in an elevator. It is the 1,000 tiny threat assessments that happen automatically every single day. So when you reach for her, whether it's the small of her back in a crowded room or a gentle stroke across her cheek, her system does not immediately register romance. It registers input. It scans for intent. Think about the difference between two scenarios. In the first, she's standing at the kitchen counter, lost in thought, staring out the window at the rain. You walk up behind her and place your hands on her waist. She might lean back into you. Her shoulders drop. Her breath deepens. She melts. In the second scenario, she's just had a frustrating conversation. Her jaw is tight. She's scrolling through her phone, not really seeing it. You walk up behind her and place your hands on her waist. She flinches. She might not pull away, but you feel it, that micro-tensing, that subtle shift in weight. You did the exact same thing. So why did you get two completely different responses? Because in the first moment, her nervous system was neutral, open, receptive. Your touch entered a quiet room. In the second moment, her nervous system was already on alert, already armored. Your touch knocked on a door that was already locked from the inside. This is the invisible architecture of intimacy. Most men are taught to interpret a woman's reaction to touch as a binary signal. Good or bad, yes or no, turned on or turned off. But that is like reading a book by looking at the cover and declaring you understand the story. Her reaction is a multi-layered response that begins in the oldest, most primitive parts of her brain. It is shaped by her history, not just with you, but with everyone who has ever touched her. The father who was too rough when she was small. The ex-boyfriend who grabbed her arm during an argument to keep her from walking away. The stranger on the subway whose knuckles brushed against her thigh for just a second too long. None of those moments were about her, but every single one of them left a signature on her skin. Every single one of them taught her nervous system something about what touch can mean. And here is where it gets complicated. She doesn't want you to tiptoe around her. She doesn't want you to be afraid of touching her. That hesitation, that tentative quality, she can read that too. And hesitation is its own kind of signal. It whispers uncertainty. It whispers that you are not sure of your place, not sure of her, not sure of yourself. And uncertainty, to that ancient threat detection system is not comforting. It is unnerving. So you are left with a paradox. Your touch must be both completely safe and completely confident. It must say, without words, I am no threat to you, and I am not afraid of you. The secret lies in what we call preparation. Not in the moment of touch itself, but in the seconds before. Watch any two people who share real intimacy. You will notice something subtle. The man doesn't just reach out randomly. He announces his intention without words. He turns his body toward her fully. He lets her see his hands. He slows down. There is a rhythm to it, a pause, a visible breath. This is not performance. This is biology. He is giving her system time to register him, to update the threat assessment in real time, to recognize that the person approaching is not a stranger, but her partner. When touch comes out of nowhere, even loving touch, it can startle. And a startled system does not feel love. It feels adrenaline. Consider the simple act of taking her hand. If you are walking down the street and you suddenly grab her hand, you might feel rejected if she pulls away, or if her hand stays limp in yours. But what if the issue wasn't that she didn't want to hold your hand? What if the issue was that her hand was cold and her body was focused on conserving heat? What if she was in the middle of processing a difficult thought, and your sudden grip interrupted that processing in a way that felt intrusive? Her reaction wasn't about you. It was about the mismatch between your timing and her internal state. The difference between touch that connects and touch that repels is often just a matter of a few seconds, giving her the chance to turn toward you, even subtly, before contact is made. But here's what most people don't realize. Her reaction to touch is also deeply influenced by what she believes about herself in that moment. If she is feeling insecure, if she is doubting her desirability, if she is carrying the weight of a bad day, your touch lands differently. It lands against a backdrop of internal static. A woman who feels unseen may misinterpret a gentle touch as pity. A woman who feels invisible may flinch because your attention feels like a spotlight that exposes her. And a woman who feels safe with herself will receive your touch as confirmation of something she already knows. That she is wanted, that she is cherished, that she is worthy of gentleness. This is the layer that most advice completely misses. They tell you to touch her more. They tell you to be spontaneous. They tell you that physical affection builds connection. And all of that is true. But it is only true if the foundation is solid. And the foundation is not built in the moment of touch. It is built in the thousands of tiny interactions where you demonstrated that you see her. Not her body, not her role in your life. Her. The way she takes her coffee. The way she crinkles her nose when she laughs at something she knows she shouldn't find funny. The way she gets quiet when she's thinking deeply. When she knows that you see her, your touch becomes an extension of that seeing. It becomes the physical proof of your attention. When she does not feel seen, your touch feels like a demand. It feels like you want something from her body, not from her. And here we arrive at the great misunderstanding. So many men believe that gentle touch is a technique. If I touch her like this, she will respond like that. But technique without attunement is manipulation. And her body knows the difference. It knows the difference between a hand that is exploring and a hand that is performing. It knows the difference between pressure that asks and pressure that takes. It knows the difference between a caress that says, I am here with you, and a caress that says, I am here for me. You cannot fake this. You cannot trick her nervous system. It has been reading intent since before she had words. Think about the quality of your touch. Not the where, but the how. Are your hands present or are they distracted? Are they warm or are they cold? Are they relaxed or are they tense? She feels all of this. If your hand is tense, her body will tense in response. That is not rejection. That is resonance. She is matching your state. If you approach her with tension, her body will unconsciously prepare for something difficult. If you approach her with presence, her body will soften into that presence. You are not just touching her. You are communicating your entire internal landscape through your fingertips. And then there is the matter of place. The places you touch her are not neutral territories. Each area of her body has its own history, its own sensitivity, its own meaning. The back of the hand is public. The inside of the wrist is intimate. The neck is sacred. The lower back is charged. The face is vulnerable. If you touch her face too soon, before she has granted you access to that vulnerability, she will pull back. Not because she doesn't want you to touch her face, but because you have entered a room she hasn't invited you into yet. And that rush, that skipping of steps, feels like a violation of the unspoken agreement between you. It feels like you are moving faster than the relationship can handle. The woman who reacts differently to gentle touch is not complicated. She is not mysterious. She is not playing games. She is responding to information that you cannot see. She is responding to the sum total of every touch she has ever received, every lesson her body has learned, every scar that never quite healed. She is responding to the temperature of the room, the time of day, the look in your eyes, the tone of your voice from 5 minutes ago, the memory of how you touched her last week, the hope of how you might touch her next year. All of that is compressed into a single moment. All of that is expressed in a single flinch or a single sigh. So what do you do with this knowledge? Do you analyze every touch? Do you calculate every angle? No, that would be worse. That would make you mechanical, distant, performative. What you do instead is you become a student of her. Not of women in general, of her. You learn the language of her reactions. You notice the small things. You notice that she leans into your touch more in the morning than at night. You notice that she pulls away when you touch her shoulder from behind, but softens when you touch the same shoulder while facing her. You notice that she holds your hand tighter when she's anxious and looser when she's content. You notice without judgment. You observe without demand. And over time, you begin to understand the grammar of her body. You learn when to reach out and when to wait. You learn that sometimes the most powerful touch is the one you hold back. Because here is the truth that changes everything. Restraint can be more intimate than contact. When you are in bed together and you simply place your hand on her hip and stop there, not moving, not advancing, just holding that space, that communicates something profound. It says, I am here. I am not in a hurry. I am not trying to get somewhere else. I am with you in this exact moment. That kind of touch is rare. It is so rare that when a woman experiences it, she often remembers it for years. Not because it was technically impressive, but because it was psychologically safe. Because it allowed her to be present without performance. Because it asked nothing of her except that she exist. And in that safety, something shifts. her body begins to relax its defenses, not because she decides to, but because the threat assessment system finally stops receiving alerts. Your presence becomes a signal of safety rather than a signal of uncertainty. And when that happens, her reaction to your touch changes permanently. She begins to lean toward you before you even reach out. Her body starts to anticipate contact as a source of comfort rather than a source of demand. She becomes more receptive, not because you have figured out the right technique, but because you have proven yourself trustworthy over time. But be careful. This trust is not permanent. It is not a trophy you win and keep forever. It is a living thing. It requires maintenance. A single moment of roughness, a single instance of touch that ignores her cues, can reset weeks of safety. Her system will remember. It will file that moment away. And the next time you reach for her, there will be a pause, a micro-hesitation, as her body checks the archives. Is this the safe hand or the other one? That pause is not punishment. It is protection. And it is not personal. It is biological. You might be wondering about the women who seem to crave touch, who lean into every contact, who are openly affectionate without hesitation. What about them? Are they different? Do they have a different system? No. They have simply had different histories. They have learned, through experience, that touch is reliably safe. Their nervous systems have been calibrated by consistent, gentle, respectful contact. They trust more easily because their data supports that trust. But even they have limits. Even they have moments when touch feels wrong. Even they have days when the last thing they want is to be reached for. The difference is that they are more likely to communicate that directly. They are more likely to say, "Not right now," without guilt. And when they do, it is not a rejection of you. It is a statement about their internal state in that moment. So what do you do when you reach for her and she pulls away? What do you do when you feel that flinch, that stiffness, that subtle withdrawal? The natural response is to feel hurt, to take it personally, to withdraw yourself in return. But the more intelligent response is to pause and observe, not to demand an explanation, not to ask, "What's wrong?" in a tone that accuses, but to simply notice, to let your hand rest where it is or withdraw it gently, to give her space, to communicate without words that her comfort matters more than your desire for contact. That response, the response that absorbs the flinch without retaliating, is itself a form of touch. It is the touch of emotional safety, and it will be remembered. The truth is that gentle touch is not about pressure or technique or location. It is about permission. Not the kind of permission that requires a verbal contract, but the kind that is continuously renewed in every moment. It is about approaching her as a person rather than a destination. It is about understanding that her body is not public property, not even for you. It is a private country, and you are a visitor. And like any good visitor, you learn the customs. You learn the language. You learn when to enter and when to wait at the door. The woman who reacts differently to gentle touch is not a puzzle to be solved. She is a person to be known. And the more you know her, the more her reactions will make sense. Not because you have mastered some universal code, but because you have learned her specific code. You have learned that she loves her neck touched only when she is lying down. You have learned that she hates her feet being touched unexpectedly. You have learned that she craves pressure on her lower back when she is stressed. You have learned these things because you paid attention, because you treated her reactions as information rather than as problems. And in that attention, something extraordinary happens. Your touch becomes not just contact, but communication. It becomes a language that only the two of you speak. It becomes a secret handshake, a private joke, a wordless conversation that deepens over time. And when that happens, her reactions stop being mysterious. They become predictable in the best way. You know that when you touch her a certain way, she will sigh. You know that when you hold her a certain way, she will relax completely. You know that when you reach for her in the dark, she will turn toward you before you even make contact. This is the goal. Not to control her reactions, not to engineer the perfect touch, but to know her so well that your touch becomes an extension of her own sense of safety. To become for her a place where her nervous system can finally rest. To be the exception to every lesson her body ever learned about the danger of being reached for. Because here is the final truth that most people never consider. When a woman lets you touch her, she is not just giving you access to her body. She is giving you access to her history. She is trusting you with everything that ever happened to her. She is letting your hands write a new story over the old ones. And that is not a small thing. That is not casual. That is the most profound gift she can offer. So the next time you reach for her, remember what your hands carry. Remember that they are not just hands. They are the authors of her future reactions. They are the architects of her safety or her vigilance. And the way you touch her today will echo in the way she reacts to you tomorrow, next month, and for as long as she carries the memory of your gentleness in her skin. Touch her like you know this. Touch her like her body is sacred. Touch her like you are not afraid of her, not afraid of her reactions, not afraid of the depth of what you might find. Touch her like you are grateful that she lets you, and watch what happens.